Well, good morning and welcome to episode 13 of Rubbish Talk podcast with myself, Alistair Meldrum.
And myself, Jane Bond, in place of Heather.
Who is sunning herself probably in warmer climates. Well, she might actually be working at this time, but she is in warm climates. So, first of all, apologies. Last week we had a few sound issues. I had broken my computer and I was working off my laptop. We had a few issues with sound. So amazing that we've actually got to halfway through the year with episode 13. And we've got some news at the end of this in terms of Rubbish Talk podcast. But first up, we want to talk about the DRS, which was postponed fairly recently and it's been postponed to October 2025. So the plan is to try and tie that in with the UK DRS, but it's had pretty big implications. And I know probably myself, I've not been totally supportive of DRS. That, you know, my view has always been that we've got a doorstep recycling service that we should be utilising better. And the idea that people aren't going to litter because of a 20 pence deposit is a non-starter. But at the end of the day, the DRS was what was to be put in place. There was legislation to put in place. Companies have spent a lot of money, invested a lot of money, and now it's been pulled. So the sad news is Circularity Scotland, who are the company that was to actually implement the programme, they've actually just laid off all their staff. So there's 60 staff looking for new jobs. And I know for a fact that Biffa have moved a significant number of their staff into the DRS because they were a subcontractor, and they've invested significant amounts of money, £60 million into the project. And obviously all the supermarkets have been putting in their deposit return schemes in their car parks and so on. So pretty sad news in terms of the waste sector.
Yeah, it is. It was such a big thing, and then politics or whatever gets in the way of environmental and sustainability challenges. But on a more positive note, we've got the Circular Economy Bill was introduced on the 13th of June. So that gives more legislation to tackle waste and hopefully increase reuse and recycling rates. So it will give ministers a power to set local recycling targets. You know, I mean, we've got Wales, who's the best recycling rate in the UK. So, you know, we're focusing on trying to improve our recycling rate to beat Wales. Statutory targets for the circular economy to measure progress in reducing waste and the nation's carbon footprint. We've talked a lot about reducing waste and minimising waste, because recycling is fine, but we need to reduce it at the outset, banning the disposal of unsold consumer goods. So again, a lot of high-end textile industry where if they hadn't sold their products, went straight into landfill. So you ended up with a lot of security there so that people wouldn't, you know, again, be able to sell those products at a reduced price. It's all about brand identity. So hopefully, you know, going forward, we'll actually be able to do something with those products. And then more charges on single-use items like coffee cups and other things like that to use reusable alternatives. I mean, every time you go into the main coffee shops, they do say that if you bring in your own reusable cup, you get 25p off or something like that. So, you know, it's just making sure that that's the option, and carrying a recyclable cup or a reusable cup with you whenever you go places.
No, did you know, Jane, it's World Reusable Cup Day today?
Oh, is it?
I spotted that on my LinkedIn.
Well, that's quite impressive. I've got my reusable cup with me.
I think I noticed there's another few more measures in the Circular Economy Bill, wasn't? And the one that did catch my eye was the move to, if you drop litter out of your car, they're looking to change the powers that they're allowed to fine the owner of the vehicle, because that's currently the problem. So if somebody throws litter out of a car, you know, you can't always identify who it is. But now they're saying that person that owns that vehicle would be fined effectively. So that's an interesting change as well. And talking about litter, we're both back from our summer holidays. I spent 10 days in Crete. And what really struck me about Crete was there was next to no litter. I hardly saw a bit. There was absolutely no chewing gum on the street, and there was certainly no fag ends on the street. And so it seems to be a real cultural thing where they don't throw away as much. There were the usual bin lorries that you see with the crew standing in the little step at the back end, which was probably banned in the UK 15 or 20 years ago. Jane, what was your waste management spying activities when you were on holiday?
Yeah, well, I was in Malta for 4 days, and driving around on the bus and spotting the landfill site and the waste recycling centres, which my daughter said I was a bit weird about. But one of the things I noticed, well, my cousin lives in Malta, so we were having a good chat about plastic bottles, and she had loads of plastic bottles ready for recycling, because they have a DRS over there, and it's like 10 cents on plastic bottles. But her issue was she was saying that they've only got one of these reverse vending machines nearby, and it's either broken down or there is a massive queue when it does work. So she was saying it's not really that easy to actually find places that will take these bottles. So again, I think when we were looking at our DRS in Scotland, it was very much a case of, we needed to get take backs in a lot of places so that it would prevent this. So hopefully when ours eventually comes into play, there will be plenty of places to take these plastic bottles and they won't build up like they are at my cousin's in Malta.
So there you go. So we are going into holiday season. So if any of our listeners see good practice, bad practice in terms of waste management, in terms of litter, we would love to hear from you. Just comments in the social media and so on.
And any photographs,
absolutely.
We want this evident.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Photographs would be good. I actually think I managed to go for the full week or 10 days without taking photographs of bins, which is probably a record for myself, actually. And lastly, the big news from the Rubbish Talk podcast, as well as hopefully getting through episode 13, so halfway through the year, Rubbish Talk and the logo we've got is now a trademark. We now have Rubbish Talk is ours for as long as we remember to keep renewing the trademark.
Yeah, and it's a really good trademark.
Absolutely. With nothing else to chat about, we're going to have a chat with Robin Stevenson, who is the Managing Director of Hamilton Waste. And Robin has actually very kindly broken out time from his holidays, actually sitting in warm climes as well. So lots of holiday talk this week. So have a listen to Robin's journey through the waste management sector. Okay, good morning everybody. Alistair Meldrum here with my new co-host Jane Bond and our guest Robin Stevenson. So morning Robin, how are you?
I'm very well.
And I think we're breaking new ground here, Robin, because you're not in the UK at the moment. You've kindly joined us from your holiday, I believe.
Absolutely, yeah. Sunny Corfu. It's very warm, I have to say.
Thank you for giving up your time to join us.
You're very welcome. Delighted to be here.
I think we'll need to hear all about what the waste management's like in Corfu as well, Robin, but we'll get onto that later.
Well, that's the sad thing about being in this industry, isn't it? That everywhere you go on holiday, you kind of look for dustbin lorries and for waste segregation, and it's kind of one of those things you either love it or hate it. But yeah, my wife goes mad at me.
Can you tell us who you currently work for and a bit of background about your organisation so that we've got the listeners get a bit of an understanding about you and where you're from?
Sure. I work for Hamilton Waste and Recycling, which is based at Musselburgh, just outside Edinburgh. We started as a business in 2002 from a small site in Walliford, I think it was, and now we're at a 15-acre state-of-the-art site in Musselburgh, Carberry in Musselburgh. Yep, first waste management company in Scotland to obtain the zero carbon status, which was great. It was a kind of a 1.5-year project for us, but something I was quite keen to do. I think it's quite important to understand your position and then set yourself some targets to improve on that. And that's something that we're very keen to become carbon positive. So our sights are set on that. And we recycle and divert material away from landfill. We operate the only plasterboard and mattress recycling plants in Scotland, which is quite good. We're going to do about 70,000, 80,000 mattresses this year, totally diverting them away from landfill, which is good, which I'm sure we'll talk about. It's my mantra to get that banned, landfill in mattresses. And then we produce SRF, which I believe we're the only people in Scotland to produce SRF. And we supply to three soon to be 4 locations around the UK.
I'm going to jump in there, Robin, because you've just used an acronym without telling us what that means.
Oh, yeah. Solid recoverable fuel. Sorry. Yes.
That's all right.
It's a habit, Alistair, isn't it?
I know it's a habit, but we try and catch these habits so that people know what they are.
Yeah.
So what is that? It's solid recoverable fuel. So what does that mean?
It's kind of end of life material that we can't get any further commodity from it. So all the recyclates are taken out of it, and then we produce a fuel. So it replicates coal basically. So you don't have to mine for fossil fuels and burn fossil fuels. So Tarmac at Dunbar, for example, are a high user of SRF, and it displaces their requirement to burn coal, which are their cement makers. So it's a great circular economy story, really.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask another question because everybody talks about SRF, but also RDF, refuse derived fuel. What's the difference?
Less processing and has more black bag waste in it, council household materials in it. And SRF meets quite a high specification, calorific value, a chlorine, an ash content, and a moisture content. So it's a high. Some people say it's a high grade RDF, if you like.
The better stuff, then.
Yeah. Better stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But we don't put any commercial waste. So our trade waste business is that waste that we collect doesn't go anywhere near our SRF production.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, back to the questions. Can you tell our listeners about your role as the managing director? What's your day-to-day job? How do you manage your job, and what's your role in this?
Well, I'm the managing director of the business, so it's a family-run business owned by David and Keir Hamilton. So heavily involved on the day-to-day as well. We put a 3-year rolling strategy, and we've moved the business quite considerably from where it was 5 or 6 years ago. It's a very different shaped business now than it was when I joined, and we employ 100 people now on site, so it's sizable. Probably my biggest requirement, if you like, my day-to-day is to communicate and get people to work as a team. So communication's key, I think, and for everybody in the business to understand from top to bottom, why they're there, what role they play in the business, how they can benefit the business, and how important they are to the business as well. So I'd like to think that you could ask anybody within Hamilton Waste what the strategy of the business is, and I think they would be able to tell you broadly. You have to be careful you don't communicate too much, obviously, because some information is sensitive, but I think communication is very, very important so that everybody understands the direction of travel we're going in. And if I tend to find that if they know the direction of travel they go in, they'll join you on that journey. If they don't, they're kind of not really 100% sure. So I think that's it's a key management skill to roll that out and to make sure that everybody has bought into the journey and bought into that, but give them the chance to share some of that and to participate in putting that strategy together. Very regularly meet the drivers and very regularly meet the operatives on site and communicate that. So regular face to face. As it's the drivers, it's kind of 6 o'clock in the morning, so it's a nice early start for me, but I don't mind that. It's quite good. And some of the questions that the guys ask and the guys and girls ask are really good and very important as well. And sometimes challenge is good. Yeah, you can think, oh, actually, I didn't think of that, or that's a blooming good idea. We should use that. And if they see that one of their ideas comes and you've used it in the plan, and you go to them and say, I've used your idea, they really buy into that. It's good. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's very powerful, isn't it? Because it means everybody's involved and everybody gets engaged and in your strategy, which is really important because everybody needs to go where you go. Know where you're going, and I think that's kind of what we try and do in Albion as well. We have regular meetings like you say. We haven't got as many people as you. We don't have to get up quite as early, but again, it's just making sure everybody knows what we're trying to achieve. I think it's really important.
Great. Well, thanks for that, Robin. Can you tell us a little about what brought you into the world of waste management? Was it an intentional direction, or was it unintentional?
I think as further the back you go, it's usually unintentional, isn't it? But nowadays, there's degrees and all sorts for waste management. But my kids are going to listen to this, so probably don't follow daddy's shoes. But I didn't do too well at school. I have to say, kind of wasn't my forte, and I just wanted to play football. This is but I wasn't particularly very good at that, so I thought I better get myself a job when I left school. So there was a job advertised in the Derby Evening Telegraph for a job at Lee Environment for a sales representative for Derby, and I went along to the interview. 2 guys there who I still know, Stephen Ansell and another guy called Bob Armstrong, and they interviewed me for the role, and I didn't get the role in Derby. Actually, a guy called John Cundall got that, who's still in the waste industry, but they offered me the position in Nottingham. It was a new depot, so that's how I got the role. And my first job, believe it or not, was selling trade waste bins, wheelie bins, off the back of a trailer. So they gave me an old Ford Escort and with a tow bar, and I had to tow. This trailer got 3 bins on basically, and that was my job. And I wasn't allowed back into the depot until I'd sold them all. So if you got to 3 o'clock, you were kind of sweating a bit if you still got one on the back of the trailer. But it was a great learning lesson for me. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'd really make it hard to get the bin off the trailer. It wasn't. It was a piece of cake, but I made it really hard. So then the person I was selling to, I kind of felt, I don't want to be helping him load that back on, and away we went. So it became quite a good selling tactic. So yeah, it was that was my introduction to waste management, selling wheelie bins off the back of a trailer. People don't believe me when I tell them that that's how I started, but that's absolutely true. That's exactly how I started. Yeah.
You probably learnt loads doing that though as well, didn't you?
I think so. I think it was a great platform to learn sales skills and what worked and what didn't work. And I've had some good mentors and colleagues throughout my I've met some really lovely people, and still friends with lots of people that I've worked with through my career. And yeah, I think you pick up good things, don't you, from people, and disregard the bad things, I guess. But it's a great learning curve. It certainly wasn't classroom orientated, that's for sure. It was out there.
Out there getting their hands dirty.
Absolutely, no, it's really good.
So how did you get from selling 3 wheelie bins on the back of your old Ford Escort into managing director of Hamilton Waste? That's an impressive leap. Yeah,
that's exactly what I was.
There must have been Lee Environmental. That's a blast from the past as well.
I know, absolutely. Well, that was kind of the route. The next route to follow from that was to become a depot manager, and I got offered the role at Coventry Depot, which was great. It was a lovely little depot, and we built that up, and I think it became one of the most profitable depots in the Lee Environmental Group. And then I got offered the Burton-upon-Trent site, which was bigger, which we did quite well with. And then I was to run both of them and work my way through there. And then from Lee Environmental, there was a guy called David Gray who then went to work for UK Waste. He brought me to UK Waste, and I area sales manager and a regional sales manager role there. And that's where I met Paul Jackson, and Paul Jackson brought me over to CETA at the time, which obviously is now Suez. And I was brought over to start their national accounts division. Then I headed up their whole sales division. So shared an office with John Scanlon, which was good fun. And yeah, I met some great people there. Marek Gordon and Graham Mays, who sadly passed away. Yeah, great guys from there. And then from that, that's where I met Ian Goodfellow. And then Ian Goodfellow took me to Shanks. I worked for Shanks for 5 or 6 years, I think. Obviously working in Shanks, I was up in Scotland. And then I met Michael Tracy, who brought me over to work for him. And worked there for 5 years until Exponent bought them out. And yeah, that's my quick paste through my
yes. I was just writing them down. Lee Environmental, UK Waste, CETA, to Suez, Shanks, Tracy's, Hamilton's. That's a fair chunk of the waste industry that you've been involved in.
Yeah.
Lee Environmental and CETA and UK Waste, because I used to work for Shropshire County Council for a while, and I know Lee Environmental and CETA were involved down in Shropshire, so it's quite interesting hearing those names again.
Yeah,
well, I think the other one in there is UK Waste is now Biffeth. That's who ended up taking over UK Waste. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And then obviously I work with Jane Stewart at Tracy's, who's a great friend of mine now, and yeah, fantastic lady. She's very good at what she does, and Sharon, who was my helped me with the accountant side of it. She's come over and she's at Hamilton's now, so she's the FD there. So yeah, it's good, very good.
Yeah, even when you were going through that journey, you mentioned national accounts. Is that you looking after national accounts for waste management services? And maybe it's not something we've talked here about here before, but maybe it might be worth explaining to listeners what national accounts are and how it works within the waste sector, because I think a lot of people probably aren't quite aware of what goes on with this.
Yeah, they'll have a central buyer. The depots that you have, you'll service directly. So obviously for Suez, there was some pockets that we couldn't do, so you'd subcontract that to a local person to empty on your behalf. But yeah, you supply waste management and recycling services for a large multi-site organisation, basically, and all the reporting that goes with it, and statistics and CSR reports. Now that wasn't there when I was there that much, but that's grown considerably to the point where now, Hamilton's, the customers have got their own portal that they can go into and get all the data that they need for their CSRs and things. So it's moved on considerably. But yeah, that was good. That was good fun. And some people, as I've mentioned before, people I worked with were fantastic. Great. I really enjoyed that time. It was good.
Yeah. Just moving on from that, then, what's been your favourite role or your favourite project you've done over your? Are you currently in it? You might be doing your favourite role at the moment.
I think maybe a different answer to each of those. My favourite role probably was at CETA Suez. Becoming their head of sales at the age I was I was quite proud of myself there, and I was fairly young, and it was a very high position. I felt, and a lot of responsibility, but we did well, and I had some great people around me. I really did, and that's, you shouldn't be frightened of having good people around you. And my father said, surround yourself with good people, and you'll be a good person. But I had great people, Lewis Colders, Paul Clements, Phil Eccles, Austin Lees. Those guys were at the top of the game, still are, and with consistent delivery of targets. And when you're hitting your targets, it does help. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, I think that probably. And then my best project got to be my crusade to get the Scottish government to ban mattresses from landfill. I think that has to be my thing. 1 out of 10 mattresses is recycled in Scotland. That's a terrible thing, isn't it? That statistic is not good. I've been doing a lot of work on this. There's various different reports out there that will give you an indication of how many. But my estimate, there's probably around about 800,000 mattresses thrown away every year in Scotland, landfilled in Scotland, which is absolutely
that's just shocking, incredible.
Yeah,
that's just incredible.
Yeah.
And I know from my experience when I ran landfill sites, mattresses were just the worst things ever to deal with, and they just took up space, they wrecked the equipment, they still got wrapped around prop shafts. They're really they're quite hard to recycle as well. They're not really recyclable, so they might work well as a mattress, but in terms of sustainability and recycling, they're awful things, aren't they?
Well, maybe our recycling facility for mattresses is pretty good, and I think we recycle 100% of that mattress. So it took us a while to get there, but we're kind of good at it really now. And I think I'm with you. If you ask the landfill guy, even 10 years ago, name three worst things on your landfill. Well, first of all, they'd say tires. Well, whole tires, they've been banned. And the second or third one will be a mattress, because they don't decay very well. They cause air pockets because the springs don't rot, which causes methane problems. Uneven ground on landfill, which I'm sure, Alistair, you had when the lorries were driving on and things. It's just, they're not, as you rightly say, they're very unfriendly to a landfill. And I just, for me, it's the fact that there are recycling opportunities out there for people to be able to do that with mattresses. And therefore, if there is already an outlet, surely we should be seriously thinking about banning any materials that there's a recycling. We shouldn't. There are materials we just shouldn't not be allowed to landfill. I mean, maybe we shouldn't have landfills, but that's for another story. But I certainly think that it's terrible. That statistic is absolutely dreadful. And there's it's not just us who recycle mattresses either. I see other companies doing it across the UK. So it's not beyond the wit of man to have that scheme in place. And one of our customers that brings mattresses to us, one of is Archers. They sell mattresses, and they do a collection scheme, and they do very well from it. And they do get asked, what do you do with they get asked that. And I think that's important, that you find out who's collecting it and where it goes to. And you wouldn't let an unqualified plumber work on your boiler, without checking that it's Corgi registered. For why not have the same principles? And I know they probably put it on the price of the mattress at their front end, but I think it's for the sake of, I don't know, a tenner or something like that, to recycle a mattress or on landfill, that has to be money well spent, in my opinion. But yeah, it is pretty bad stat that for Scotland, I have to say.
Yeah, that sounds pretty bad. I remember when a while ago taking my son to university and seeing obviously they've been clearing out their halls of residence, and all the mattresses just went in a skip. And I was like, really? I just hadn't really thought about it. The fact that, the turnover of these mattresses, so instead of cleaning them or whatever, they just threw them away. I mean, I never knew where they went, but I did think, really, there must be something that you could clean them or something. But I don't know, perhaps a year in a student residence, you really don't want to touch it afterwards. I don't know.
You'll be surprised. We do get some train spotter mattresses, as the guys call them in the shed. Even those can be recycled. But I mean, there's many local authorities we work with now are very keen to do it, and I have to applaud those that do it, because it is slightly more expensive in some cases than to have an alternative, but they're doing the right thing, and I think that's very, very important. And some of the commercial customers as well that we have, and also some of the halls of residence, some of the universities, we've done that for a university just recently, actually, where they've changed the mattresses. So yeah, I think it's coming slowly, but I'm trying desperately hard to increase the speed a little bit. But yeah,
you're trying to improve that 1 in 10 rate, aren't you? You're trying to get that 1 in 10 better.
Absolutely,
quite right. Quite right.
If I could take that to my grave, that I managed to convince a ban of mattresses to landfill, I'd be a very happy man.
Oh, perfect. I think that's a good soapbox to be on, to be honest. Okay, so you've talked about all your work and everything. What about, do you take that home? What about your morals at home? Has that changed how you think about, do you talk about it to your friends? Are you very strict at home that everything has to go in the right bin and you've got to make sure everything's recycled? Is that your do you carry that through?
Yeah, well, if I don't do it right, then my daughter absolutely will put me right. She's maybe it's because I work in the waste industry, but she Elise is at primary school, and she her and a friend, I think, set up the recycling initiative there.
Oh,
and
really?
oh gosh, she's really into it. And but it's these are the people who are going to be the guardians of the planet going forwards, their generation and the next generation. And I think it's second nature for them to do it, whereas it wasn't for us. We've had to learn to do that, whereas it seems very natural to me for that kind of age group. They just kind of an everyday thing. They don't even think about it. So yeah, I've always wanted to see the industry change, and I think it's fantastic. And I see some of the things that people are doing. Talking to a number of people about different things, but John Scanlon at Suez with the carbon capture and things like that. I mean, this is really cutting edge stuff, and will play a huge part in the sustainability and the protection of the planet, really, going forward. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think when the zero waste regulations came in, I hope that I played my little part in that, with working with some of the guys at Zero Waste Scotland and Scottish Government, and we did a big advertising campaign at William Tracy's there, which was really good. And I remember sitting in a room with Callum McDonald and a couple of others. We came up with the idea of the pod truck, using these pod trucks, and that's now been used globally. It's the pod trucks to collect glass and food and things. So yeah, it's certainly moving in the right direction, and it's good to see. But it has to have investment, and it has to be driven, doesn't it, by legislation, and the correct legislation, and those key drivers have to drive competition, and competition pushes businesses to invest and to take it to the next level. And I think that's key critical, really, in our sector. It's got to remain attractive for investors. The day it is not attractive, then it dries up and progress dries up. So I think it's very, very important. I'm fairly sure we'll talk about DRS throughout this call.
Entirely
up to you, Robin.
Yeah. I think the thing with everything is, it's yes investment, yes this, yes that, but it all has to come down to the householder as well, and the business owner. So it's up to you or your daughter to be recycling or recovering or whatever. So unless it gets down to the people that can make a difference, then all the communication and regulations in the world won't do anything unless you've got people who are actually complying with it. So actually, my daughter, for instance, the thought when she was younger, the thought of actually going into a charity shop, oh my God, no. And then she did her Duke of Edinburgh and went to work in a charity shop and realised actually the amount of stuff that gets put into the charity shops is really, really good quality. So, now that's where she shops. And she's come back with, ball gowns and outfits, for like £5, £10 that you'd be paying, at least £100. So it's changing that mentality, isn't it, as well, and making sure that everybody has to do their bit. And if you're taking what you do at work to your home life and to your friends and stuff, then I think it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, education and communication, the right communication of that is, and the right education is absolutely key critical to
that's what we're trying to do here, Robin.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, to let people know that it's really important.
Maybe not having me on them, but
in our small way. No, there's probably plenty of people are probably totally unaware of what you've just talked about in terms of mattresses and so on. Probably doesn't. They don't even think about it. They're changing their mattress. They probably have no clue that there's issues with them in terms of how we manage them, but there is now a possibility that you can get them recycled. So that's great.
No, absolutely. And I see good things as well. I see the Sue is doing the things in Manchester with the shop there, and Biffa with the food business, and their plastics recycling plant. So there is big investment from companies, and there's some really good companies out there. I know sometimes maybe people within Scottish government think we're all a bunch of rogues, but we're not. There's some very, very intelligent, forward-thinking people in some of these businesses, and we should. They need to listen a little bit more to these people. And I've always been a big advocate and said it many times in social media that the local authority sector needs to liaise with the commercial sector a little bit more, because there's a lot of opportunities there. Not every glove fits all. It's in different places there's different requirements, but to have materials going past the waste management company to go somewhere else doesn't kind of compute to me. And I think they should be working a little bit closer. I think Scottish government needs to listen to those voices a little bit more and get businesses like Hamilton's involved, and others, not just us obviously, but I can only talk for Hamilton's, but there are some really, really good businesses out there, particularly in Scotland as well, some family-led businesses that are very, very great businesses and have an immense amount to offer, not just the commercial world, but local authorities as well. And maybe if we just had a bit of a better think tank, we could utilise those, and we could then it's down to Scottish government to make sure that they legislate the rules, if you like. So set the rules and then make sure we legislate those rules. And if someone comes and says, this is a price for a skip, and you think, crikey, that sounds too good to be true. In my world, it usually is too good to be true. We need to come away from that and to understand that we're not, waste management is an integral part of where we need to be as a globe. And
as an industry, and as looking at the all those buzzwords of circular economy and all that sort of stuff, and being a part of that. But I'm kind of going off a bit off script here. I'm sorry, Alistair, but Robin, I think Hamilton Waste were in for a Vibes Award a while back.
Yeah.
And I think was it to do with the mattresses, or I can't remember now.
Yeah, well, we've won a few awards for that, and for best recycling place, and in the UK, and various different different awards. So we're on the map. We're doing okay. So
because I think that's really important, isn't it? Because it actually shows the innovation of the company and how that kind of translates into being able to demonstrate that.
I think so. It's nice to be recognised, isn't it, for their hard work? Because sometimes
Yeah, I think so.
that doesn't always come forwards. But yeah, it is nice, and there are, as I said, there are a lot of great businesses out there, and I think sometimes recognition is
it's very important.
It's very important to just people know they're appreciating the hard work and effort that they do, and it's shows that their investment is working to some degree. So
yeah,
I totally agree about the SMEs in Scotland, Robin. There's some amazing companies that have just, they've come up the hard way, they've done the hard work, they've grown, they've invested, and I think probably where I see them is they're very good often at doing the day-to-day job, but they're probably not nearly as good as selling what they actually do and just making it clear the value they add to the local community and how waste is handled in that area. And I think some of them find it really frustrating in terms of the structure they have to work in terms of the legislation and where their opportunities are for winning tenders, all this sort of stuff, and it's challenging for them because they're busy doing the day-to-day work, and that's their priority, and it's been their priority for a long time. So
yeah, no, absolutely. There's a cost associated with tendering for some work, and it's a lot of time and investment, and for no guarantee of success. So yeah, you've got to go for it, and you're right. They're very good at doing the day-to-day stuff, and I think that the RMAS is a good sounding board for everybody. Yeah. I think that group was
that's you using acronyms again. So Resource Management Association Scotland, which the idea of that organisation is to try and pull together these SMEs to give them one voice, and Nikki Suter, etc., doing that very, very well at the moment, I think.
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, it's certainly in Scotland it's become a good voice, and you've got CISA as well, which involves some of the larger businesses. So I think the voice of those two together is quite it's quite powerful, and I think we saw that with DRS. The community, the waste community got together, whether you agreed with it or didn't agree with it, but fundamentally, nearly every party said, this is going to be difficult to roll out unless it's uniformed across the UK, and I can absolutely, my views are, I think we already have infrastructure in place and legislation in place. You've got curbside collections from the local authorities, which I think if you invested in more investment in those, you would see greater improvement. East Lothian Council is a great example of that. And then on the commercial side, obviously, we're already collecting those material streams. So I think my focus would have been that's just my personal opinion. But it's very, very difficult to roll something out that's going to be different in one part of the UK to another. It's someone gave me a great analogy that said that they go to Newcastle and buy 1 million plastic bottles, and then travel across the border, and then basically stand and put them in a deposit return scheme and get your money.
I like your thinking. They'd maybe have a sore arm by the end of the day.
A very rich sore arm.
Well, I'm sure there's lots of discussions and hot topics to talk about around DRS, to be honest. But back to you, Robin. You are, sunning yourself in Corfu at the moment. Is that, you're obviously relaxing away from work. What else do you like to do? Is this, when you're away from the DRS and your mattresses, what do you like to do to wind down?
That's a good question. I'm not sure my wife would ever say I wind down, to be honest. But I play a bit of golf. I kind of got into that. I used to play it when I was younger, but I kind of got back into it now, living where I live in North Berwick. So I kind of got back into that, and I became a member at North Berwick a good few years ago now. And it's a fantastic course to play.
It's a lovely course, isn't it?
Yeah,
lovely course along this
road. I think it's one of the most. Is it the eighth most wanted played course in in the UK or something like that. But it's it's absolutely fantastic, and it must be good, because my old chairman Michael Tracy, it's his favourite course, and he's played all over the world, and he always said to me, when I moved here, he said, get yourself into North Berwick. And I'm so glad that he convinced me to do that, because you just can't get into North Berwick anymore. There's no membership list. It's kind of all closed. So I'm glad he did. And beautiful. It's a tested little course on the back nine if the wind's blowing in the right direction. But yeah, and then
we need sorry, Robin. We need the detail here. What's your handicap?
Oh, it's not so good. 16.
Well, that sounds all right.
I don't play.
That's certainly better than mine, which doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'd like to play a bit more, but I'm kind of finding the evening times that if I can get on the course for kind of 6:30, 7 o'clock, and you're not messing about, you can nip round North Berwick in as long as you're not searching for balls and things. You can get kind of round in 3 hours. So I'm quite enjoying that, and taking advantage of that. And then I took up running just to get fit. I was a little bit overweight and felt a bit sluggish, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to get myself fit. So I've started doing a little bit of running, and probably run about 3 or 4 times. I do a 5K 3 or 4 times a week now. So I'm back to kind of my weight I was when I was a little bit younger, but feel a lot fresher and brighter and fitter for it. So I don't particularly enjoy running, I have to say, but I enjoy the feeling of being fit. So yeah.
So what's your next race then, Robin? You know I like a wee bit of running chat. So
yeah, absolutely. I know. I don't know. I've been tempted into doing the Edinburgh 10K, and is it September time, Alistair? I think, or something like that.
Could be.
Yeah, but I don't know. We'll see. But yeah. Well, we sponsored the marathon, Edinburgh Marathon, for 4 years. So that was our last year actually. But yeah, and the organisers there were desperately trying to get me to do it, and I'm like, I just can't run that distance, I'm afraid. Not with my knees. I've had 3 operations on them, so they won't last that long. But might push to a 10K. I've done a couple of 10Ks at home, but not competitively. But my problem is that I think it's going to be good fun, but then the competitiveness in me comes out, and I keep trying to beat my time. So my 5K's at 26:42, I think, something at the moment, which is fairly respectable for a 55-year-old, I think.
That's all right.
Yeah, anybody who runs is completely mad in my book, to be honest. Why run if you can cycle there? That's my.
Well, I'm actually fairly tired just now, Robin, because I spent Saturday being support runner for. I don't know if you're aware of this race. So the West Highland Way race, it starts from Mulgai, runs to Fort William. So the poor runners start at 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and they run through the night. So I ran from Glencoe to Fort William, which is a marathon effectively. Yeah. Started at 9 o'clock on Saturday evening, and we finished in Fort William at 6:15 on Sunday morning. So I've had not very much sleep this weekend. So we never ran well. So my runner Sarah did an amazing job to finish. So I've had a pretty busy weekend. So
I bet your legs ached after that, didn't they?
Well, to be honest, I was pretty tired, and it's just that way. Like I could only go at her pace, which was by that stage was pretty slow, but she'd obviously run 70 or 80 miles by that time. So it's really hard work going slow when you don't want to be going slow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I wouldn't know that.
Yeah, no, certainly. But there's nothing better. I've said to people many times, there's nothing better than running through the night in Scotland. Yeah. It's just incredible. It hardly gets dark. You have about sort of 3 hours of darkness, and that's it. So it was great. It was great.
Yeah,
so
sounds fun.
Brilliant.
Sounds dreadful.
No, not dreadful at all. Not dreadful.
Anyway, moving on.
Exactly. So next up for you for your career, Robin, was more of the same. Do you think, or the big plans afoot?
Well, I'm 55, so I've got to probably have one eye on retirement. Although I'm not so sure that Kirsty would want me to do that. But I'm enjoying it. I think I've still got a lot to give to the industry, and I've got some knowledge of it and an opinion on things, and hopefully I can share those and with people going forwards, and continue to do what we're doing, and try and cajole the industry or the governments into investing in putting legislation into the right areas and moving the business on. So we're putting a new SRF line in at the moment, an additional line into at Musselburgh, and a wash plant at Lone Head. So that'll start in end of July. So yeah, we're still very, very busy, which I really, really enjoy, and continue to invest. So yeah, focus is there. I kind of not really thought much more than a couple of years, Alistair, to be honest. But I'm enjoying it. I certainly don't feel like hanging my boots up at the moment. And if David and Kira will continue to have me, then I'll still enjoy it.
Well, that sounds like a good plan, Robin. I think yes. So what about we've got here about one fact you would share from your job or sector which you think people may not know. We've already gone on about the mattresses. Is there anything else, or is that that is the main thing?
Yeah, I think the stat, one in 10 mattresses is currently recycled. Is a terrible statistic, certainly not one we should be proud of. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, isn't it? Really, to some degree.
It is. You mentioned plasterboard, Robin. Can you maybe explain a wee bit about what you do with plasterboard and what's meant to or not meant to happen with plasterboard at the moment?
Well, I mean, plasterboards. We're finding with plasterboard that the volumes are there, and I think when designers of houses are starting to design houses where either a full sheet or a half sheet is used, which is great. That cuts down on the amount of waste, if you like. So we separate the plasterboard from its paper, and we use the plasterboard for agricultural purposes. So it works. We only do our own material. We don't take third party. We're in charge of our own destiny then, Alistair, and we're also in charge of our own quality, which is very, very important, I feel, when you're collecting material like that, because it can easily get contaminated, and the only way of getting contamination out is by hand. It's not easy. So you have to be quite strict with it, and the quality is very, very important. So we only handle our own material, which works for us. It's you have to have that to operate in the sector that we operate with the house builders, etc. And it's very important that we can recycle for these guys, so that they can recycle and show that their CSR reports are valid and correct.
Yeah, good. So any habits or changes you would suggest to the public in terms of how they manage their waste or recycling? Any thoughts there?
Well, I think we mentioned about education, so that's extremely important. A habit becomes something when you do it. Is it 5 times or more? I think they say. So I think that's going to play a massive part. I think the fact that we mentioned before, the younger generation now, the 8, 9, 10-year-olds, it's just so natural that they recycle. They don't think anything. I know for sure that my 2 little girls don't even think about I've got to put this banana skin in the food bin, rather than that's where it goes, and that's what they understand. So I think these guys are going to be the guardians of our planet, so we need to invest in that. But education, I think we've said before, is key, absolutely key, and an investment in the sector as well. And I think if you've got those 2 things, that kind of drives innovation. and then an infrastructure and competition. That's equally important. And without those, we're not going to move forward. So I think all those key elements are very, very key, critical. But I think you see some different containers in different places, like in Princess Street Garden, and you see people not 100% sure which material goes in which one. So labeling's always good, but I think if there is something there, my message probably to the public is to use it. Don't just dismiss it, use it, and that way we'll improve and become knowledgeable of what we need, where we need to go and why we need to do it.
Yeah. Good. Well, you've shared a few acronyms already, and I've challenged you to explain them. Any favourite ones? So favourite industry jargon or acronym that you like or hate, maybe?
Well, there's so many, isn't there? But I can tell. Last month I was in a meeting and we were talking on a Teams call, and we were talking about different things, finances. I think it was based around a couple of different agenda items, and someone said, what was it? Have you got the LTM? And I'm thinking, LTM? And I'm obviously based around it. I'm thinking long term something. That's got to mean long term something. And I just couldn't get it, and I was Googling it whilst I was on the call.
I was going to say you were probably another screen trying to Google it.
I was. And I thought, I've got to know, I can't look daft, dafter than I am already. So anyway, I looked it up. So it's the last 12 months, LTM. I just would not have got that in a month or Sundays, never mind about anything else. But
you sometimes wonder about some of them. They make it shorter, but it actually takes you longer because it's like, there you go. Yeah. So, anyway, we're going to give you a magic wand. What one thing would you like to use it for in terms of the waste sector in Scotland? Oh. Well, it could be the waste sector wider, but if you want to stick to Scotland, that's fine.
Yeah. For me, if I could wave a magic wand, it would be the mattresses, absolutely, to get those banned from landfill. That would, I mean, there's many, but that would drive the quickest change, I think. You could, I'm not saying you could do it overnight, but there are, that already, the recycling stream already exists for that material stream. So, why not use it? That really is kind of where I think it needs to be. And yeah, waving a magic wand, so many, but yeah, that probably would be my go-to if I was pushed.
Sure. Sounds a good one. Sounds a good one.
And I think we've gone through all the reasons why we need this legislation and get the mattresses recycled with all your stats and all this sort of stuff as well. Your sort of career, actually, it's quite interesting because you did actually start off in waste management, didn't you? Even though you didn't, even though you weren't that, and so what advice would you give to anybody who was looking, looks up at you and thinks, right, okay, I want to do that? What advice would you give them to start off in the career, and where would you say for them to look at or look for or whatever?
Well, I think, I'm not sure it's easier to get into our industry now than it was when I was getting into it. It's a different path, different ways of getting into it. But now there's so many things, degrees and things into waste management. So I think understand the industry, and the best way of doing that is to involve yourself in that. So even up to 6 weeks ago, I was on a picking line. So, and the reason I do that is that I wouldn't ask anybody to do something that I wouldn't do myself. And I think it's important because it's a bloody tough job. Sorry for my language there, but it is a really tough job. Your arm, when you're picking, your arms start burning, and it's really, really, really hard. And I think you need to understand that how hard that job is, and for someone to stand there and do it 8 hours, 7 or 8 hours every day, it's a hard job. and they need to, in turn, they need to be able to see that you can do that, and why, most importantly, why it's important to the business that they're there, and why they're doing that. And yeah, so I think understanding the business, coming into it's a great sector to come into now, isn't it? With all the investment and what's happening, and all the eyes are on the world of sustainability. So yeah, what a great time to come into the waste management sector. But since I joined it when I was 17, it's come a tremendous way. I mean, there wasn't even landfill tax when I started. And I remember that. I remember landfill tax coming, everybody moaning and groaning about landfill tax. It will never work, etc. But look what it's done.
£5 a ton, wasn't it?
Yeah,
£5 a ton when it first came in.
It was the landfill site that we were disposing of at Lea Environmental, but that was price per cubic meter. There wasn't even it wasn't even a tonnage price. It was a price per cubic meter. So yeah, but landfill tax has absolutely played its part in making that investment case possible to do something different. So yeah, I think that's key. I think they need legislation's also one as well, that get that in the right place, that ultimately will drive this industry. Yeah, that's kind of my key points when we come in. But as I say, a great time to be in this sector.
I think there's so many different opportunities and so many different things in our sector, isn't there? From, we're talking about finance earlier, but there's engineering, there's sort of sales, there's actually being, like you say, being on the picket line or whatever. So picking line, not picket line.
That's what.
The picking line. So yeah, so there's so many different career paths, and I think it's always a question of if you can get in or get some advice from yourself as to where to go. It's quite important. It's quite useful for people.
Yeah, I think there's new things though, isn't there? Yeah, you look at this carbon capture. I mean, that's a very new area that everybody's moving towards, and the solar as well, which is a growing part of there's wave energy and things like that. So it is very, very exciting and a great sector to be in. As you rightly say, Jane, the opportunities to a successful career in this industry are vast, and yeah, it's really, really, really exciting times.
Most people have thought to sell the industry and say it's a great industry to be in, and I think literally everybody we've interviewed has actually been perfectly happy. And generally they're not okay. They might not want to tell in public that they're looking for a new job or whatever, but in the whole, most people are saying, no, I'm actually quite enjoying what I'm doing already. So I think that's really interesting. So I'm conscious we've taken up a lot of your holiday time, Robin. Thank you very much. Hopefully it's still sunny outside and nice and toasty warm for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 32 degrees, I think. So yeah, pretty good. But,
you're lucky.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for inviting me on. I really, really enjoyed it.
No bother at all. Thank you.